Hi guys, what's up? Welcome to or welcome back to my channel. My name is Emma for those of you who are new, and I would love it if you guys subscribed and stuck around. Today's video, as you can tell by the title, we are just going to be chatting about all the books that I read in 2023 and tier ranking them, which I'm so excited about. I filmed this video last year for all the books that I read in 2022. I almost doubled the amount of books that I read in 2022 and 2023. I feel like I read a lot of good books in 2023 and I'm excited to share my thoughts with you all. Be sure to like this video and comment down below what videos you guys want to see from me in 2024. Be sure to subscribe and follow me on all of my other socials. But let's go ahead and get into all the books that I read in 2023. So I've already put all of the books that I read in this little tier ranker. I think it's just called tiermaker.com. Before we get into the actual tier ranking, I just wanted to talk about my 2023 reading stats with you guys. So my reading goal for the year was 100 books, which was honestly a little bit ambitious because the year before that I had only read like 37 books. I honestly felt like I could achieve it, but I unfortunately did not. I only made it 52% of the way to my goal. So I only read 52 books in 2023, which honestly, for me working a full-time job and had just started getting into my reading journey again in like 2022, I feel like 52 books is pretty good. I am going to make a more reasonable, practical goal for myself going forward in 2024, which we will talk about in a different video. But I only read 52 books, but I was over halfway toward my goal, so, and almost doubled what I had read the year before. Kind of, sort of, not really, but honestly proud of myself, but still could have done better. Also, I'm pulling all these stats from Goodreads, by the way. If you didn't know, Goodreads kind of has like a wrap up that you can click on and view. And apparently I read 21,514 pages, which to me honestly doesn't seem like that many for like 52 books, but I guess that is a lot. The longest book I read apparently was 681 pages, and that was Say You Swear by Megan Brandy, and I had no idea that book was that long because I read it on Kindle. And then the shortest book that I read was 257 pages, and that was Call It What You Want by Alyssa. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. The average rating I gave was 3.9 stars, which honestly I feel like is pretty high. In the new year in 2024, I want to not be more harsh with like my book ratings, but not rate everything as highly, just because I feel like I rate things highly and then I read new books and stuff like that, and then the books that I rated highly in the beginning of the year aren't as high anymore. If you followed me and watched all of my wrap-up videos last year or follow me over on Goodreads, there will probably be some things that I rated like very highly that I'm not gonna rate very highly now, or I honestly forgot that I read. So ratings are subjective 100%. So I feel like I did read a lot of good books in 2023 and found some books that have sort of shaped me as a reader. I sort of figured out more of what I like to read, but I feel like 2024 is going to be more about stepping outside of my comfort zone, just reading what I want to read, not forcing myself to read something just because everyone else is, not forcing myself to like something just because everyone else is. I'm gonna make a whole video about that. So let's just go ahead and get into tier ranking all the books that I read in 2023. Okay guys, so as you can see here, this is all the books that I read in 2023. I have all the pictures loaded in. I just took the ones that were on Goodreads and just did them that way. So some of the covers are ugly and like the weird covers that give you the ick with like the men on the cover, but I just thought it was easier to pull them from Goodreads. So, but let's just go ahead and talk about all of the categories that I have. So I decided to do 5 categories just like I did last year, and a couple of them are the same. So we'll just start from the top. So my first tier is would sell my soul to experience reading this for the first time again. Major top reads, like 6-star or more reads, books that I loved, books that I have not shut up about for a reason, just books that I would literally sell my soul to read again for the first time. Then the next category is definitely a top read, you know, just a book that I really enjoyed. Maybe I rated it 5 stars, maybe I still don't shut up about it for a reason, but it's not in that like fangirl top category, but definitely a top read for sure. And then this middle tier was also in last year's video, and that is not my favorite but would still recommend. So maybe one that I personally didn't love or that wasn't my favorite, but I can see why someone else would like it, and so I would recommend it in that sense. And this next category is, did I actually read this? LOL. So basically this category is just books that I forgot that I read, honestly. Ones that maybe I don't remember, so maybe they weren't even that great even if I rated them super highly. So just books that like I'm just feel indifferent towards, like I don't remember if I read them, or I remember that I read it but I don't know what it's about. Just that sort of thing. Just books that clearly were not that memorable in my mind. And then the last tier I have is immediately no. Like the TikTok sound, like immediately no. Just books that I knew from the get-go I was not gonna like, ones that I forced myself to read, or ones that I just don't think you should read ever. And some of these might be unpopular opinions, some might be, you know, in the majority opinion, but those are all the tiers that I created. So let's just go ahead and get into it. I think they're all, well, they were in order at one point, but I don't think they're in order now. So that's actually like really annoying. Wait. Guys, I thought they were all in order, but they're not. But you know what? That's okay. I think I kind of remember the gist of how I read them. If not, I'll just pull up my Goodreads really quick. So, okay, so let's go ahead and get into it. So the first book that I read in 2023 was A Merry Little Meet Cute by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. And fun fact, these authors are from Kansas City, I believe, or at least one of them is from Kansas City, which I thought is cute and fun. But I want to say, here, let me scroll up so we can see all the tiers. I want to say that when I read this, I really did enjoy it, but thinking back on it, I can't really remember like too much about this book, but I still think that I would say it's definitely a top read in my opinion, just because I do remember like really enjoying it, and I think I enjoyed it mostly for the banter, and I think there's more that are coming out in the series, but I could be wrong. But really enjoyed it. Just a nice little adult romance spicy read. So next book that I read was The Score, which is the third in the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy, and I believe this is Dean's book, so I'm gonna put it in definitely a top read for me. I feel like I rated this 5 stars back when I read it, just because I read it so quickly and I really love Dean's character. I don't think it would be a 5-star read anymore, but I definitely think that this was a top read just because I read it so quickly, and I just love Elle Kennedy. I've talked about this before, but I just feel like her books are just so easy to read and they don't take any brain power. So if you're trying to like get into reading, or you're trying to like get out of a reading slump or something, I feel like Elle Kennedy is the way to go, just because like her books are just so easy. So the next book is Twisted Love by Anna Huang, and she's going right in the immediately no pile. I cannot tell you, I hated this book. I think I rated it a 2 stars, and that was being generous. I just do not get the hype about this series. I've only read the first and the second book, which I read the second book quite recently, but I'm just gonna go ahead and talk about it now just because it's right here. And I'm also just gonna put immediately no. This one was better than the first one, I will admit, but still, I just don't get the hype around these books. I honestly hate them. So moving on, that's all I'm gonna say on that. Next up, we have ACOTAR, which, let's see here. I'm not going to put it there. I'm going to put it, would sell my soul to experience reading this again for the first time. Just because it took me so long to get onto the ACOTAR bandwagon. But once I did, I fully understood why. This was not my favorite one. We're going to put A Court of Mist and Fury here too. Akamov was my favorite so far. I've only read the first 2, so I still need to read the rest of the books, you guys, even though I read A Court of Thorns and Roses last January and A Court of Mist and Fury last February. But we'll get into that in another video of all the books that I want to read in 2024. But I feel like this series is definitely worth the hype, and especially Akamov, I would sell my soul to experience reading it for the first time. So okay, next up I have Ricochet, which is the second in the Addicted series, I believe. Gonna put it in immediately no. I do not get the hype around this series either, and I'm not trying to be a hater. Maybe they get better. I just did not connect to any of the characters in this book, and I just did not really enjoy it that much. I feel like maybe if I read them again or continued reading the series, I would like it, because I know a lot of people like Rose and Connor as a couple, and then is it Daisy and Reich? Or I'm just gonna put that in the immediately no pile. Actually, no, I'm gonna keep it there. I was gonna move it to not my fave but would still recommend, but I just don't think I would recommend them because I don't like them. So that's that on that. Next up, we have The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and I'm gonna put this in not my fave but would still recommend, just because I really do not like The Inheritance Games that much. I can't even remember what happened in this, but I know that a lot of people do like The Inheritance Games, and they say that it gets better as the series progresses. So I'm just gonna put it in not my fave but would still recommend, just because I feel like some people would enjoy it, and maybe I would enjoy it if I kept reading on. I just didn't really connect or enjoy the first book that much, but maybe the rest of the series is better. Next up, I have The Chase, which is the first book in the Briar U series, which is kind of the spin-off of Off-Campus series. And I'm gonna put, did I actually read this, LOL, because I honestly do not remember this book at all. This is about like Teen's little sister and one of his ex-teammates, Fitz, like Colin, but I just don't really remember what happened in that book, so clearly it wasn't that memorable for me. So next up, guys, oh, that is not where I meant to put that. I meant to put Magnolia Parks, and would sell my soul to experience reading in for the first time. No notes for the Magnolia Parks series, guys. Like, I'm also gonna put the first Daisy Hates book in here. I absolutely love it. An unpopular opinion, I feel like I connected more to the Daisy Hates book than I did the Magnolia Parks book. It's scary. I don't know. I just feel like I connect to Daisy and her character a little bit more than I do Magnolia. But I'm currently reading the second Magnolia Parks book and the third in the Magnolia Parks universe series. So maybe I'll see more of the hype around Magnolia and BJ's story here in a little bit. And I heard that the ending of that one is crazy, but these books, I don't know what Jessica Hastings put into them, but they are amazing. And anyone who tells you that they're amazing, they are not lying. These books are amazing, and I just am so excited to read the rest of the series. I've been like slowly savoring it because the last book hasn't come out yet in the Magnolia Parks book. Book 5 is coming out soon, and I think that's the last book of Magnolia and BJ's perspectives. But I think there's another like Daisy Hates book coming, but these books, phenomenal. I absolutely love them. Probably some of my favorite books that I read in 2023. Next up, I have another book. This was the first book that I read by Lucy Score, and I'm gonna put definitely a top read. I rated this a 5 stars solely on the banter. This is the book that introduced me to Lucy Score's banter, and I remember thinking that it was going to be one of my favorite books that I read last year, and it was, but definitely not one that I would sell my soul to read again for the first time. Next up, I have Darling Venom by Parker S. Huntington, and I remember rating this a 5 stars as well, so I'm going to put it in definitely a top read for sure. I really liked this book, but not enough that I would sell my soul to experience reading it for the first time. But I absolutely love this book. Definitely look up trigger warnings if you're gonna read it, but it was definitely just an interesting story, and definitely did not expect a lot of the stuff that was going to go on in that book, and I feel like it's kind of like an unconventional romance novel, and I just really enjoyed it. So next up, I have Love in Other Words, which I'm going to put in not my fave but would still recommend, which some of you are probably going to come for me for that one, but I just did not love that book, and I think it's just because I read Every Summer After by Carly Fortune before I read this, and I heard that Every Summer After is kind of like a ripoff of Love in Other Words and The Summer I Turned Pretty, which I can definitely see why. But I think if I would have read Love in Other Words first, I would have preferred it more to Every Summer After, but because I read Every Summer After first, and I really enjoyed that storyline and the writing style, I think that's why I didn't love Love in Other Words and connect with it as much. But I can definitely see why people like Love in Other Words. So definitely not my favorite, but I would still recommend it for sure. Next up, we have Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. And you already know this is going to be in definitely a top read. I feel like this book was definitely worth the hype for sure. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, no notes on that one, honestly, like other than it's like extremely long, and I feel like it didn't need as much like fluff as it had, but definitely a top read just because it was so fun and I loved it. I'm just sad I need to buy myself a new copy because I messed up, like literally messed up my copy of Icebreaker because I decided I wanted to start annotating with that book, and it's just horrible. Like, it looks so bad, so I need to buy myself a new copy. Then I didn't read this one immediately after, but this one came out in October, and it's the second one in the Maple Hill series, and that's Wildfire. And I'm gonna put in not my fave, but would still recommend. I did not like the second book, which was really sad. I can see why people did, just because it was a short, sweet, fluffy, spicy romance novel, but I honestly miss the on-campus setting that Icebreaker had and more of like the actual sports and stuff. When I think of a sports romance or like a college romance, I think like on campus they're actually participating in sports. Like Elle Kennedy, she talks about like sports all the time and like practice and their games and stuff, which I really enjoyed. But this one did not have any of that. It was just like a summer camp setting, but I can still see why people would like it. I still like Hannah Grace's writing style and excited for, what's the next one called? Daydream or something like that. Excited for that one 100%. Next up, I have another book by Miss Lucy Score, and that's Things We Never Got Over. I'm gonna put this in definitely a top read. Again, with Lucy Score, I feel like her banter is unmatched and I loved this book. I can't remember if I rated it a 4 or 5 stars. And then I read Things We Hide from the Light after, which was not my favorite, but I would still recommend it. I just really enjoyed the Knockabout series, and I think if you're trying to get into reading or you're just looking for some quick, fast-paced romance books, those would be good. I haven't read the third in the series yet, but that is on my list to read here soon. So, Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino, I would sell my soul to experience reading this again for the first time. This is a romance novel that is second chance, friends to lovers, and I feel like this is one of the most realistic books I've ever read. It is just so... it's like, I hate the miscommunication trope, but this one did it so well. And just the storyline and the setting and just everything that happened, like, this is one of my favorite books I feel like I read in 2023, and I kind of want to reread it, honestly. It was amazing. I absolutely loved it. And then again, with If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan, would sell my soul to experience reading again for the first time. This book broke me. And we were supposed to get Ben's point of view, I think, in the fall, but the publication was pushed back. So we're getting it, I think, sometime in late winter, early spring. And I'm so excited for that. I'm going to be crying and screaming and throwing up all over again. So, Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. And I'm going to put this one in the not my fave, but would still recommend portion or tier. Just because I liked this book, I just didn't love it. But I would still recommend it to you guys. So, next up I have The Risk from the Briar You series. Again, I think this is the second in the Briar You series, and I do not remember reading this at all. Have no clue. I'm pretty sure this one is about Jake, who is a Harvard player, and maybe the Briar U hockey coach's daughter. I think this is the one that one's about, but that could also be this one, which is the play, which also cannot remember reading at all. And then The Dare. All of the Briar U series I don't remember reading, so... Sorry, Elle Kennedy, love you, girl. Then Caraval, I would say it's definitely a top read. I really did enjoy that book. I need to finish the series and then start the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy as well. Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. Not my favorite, but would still recommend. I was kind of like upset by this one just because a lot of people had said this one was like one of their favorite thrillers of all time, and I just didn't really like it that much. Next, Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. Immediately No, which is so sad because this was one of my most anticipated releases of the year. I was so excited to get my hands on this one, and I just hated it. Like, literally had to like force myself to read this book. Like, I'm surprised I did not DNF it. I just hated the trope. I hated the main characters. I just did not like this one, and it was like a huge letdown in comparison to Every Summer After, which is so sad. So A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime, guys, also an immediate no. I'm gonna try and give this series another shot. This is the Lancaster Prep series by Monica Murphy, but this book, so many questionable things in this book. I do not even want to talk about it, so that's all I'm gonna say on that one. So The Fine Print and Terms and Conditions and The Final Offer were definitely top reads. These are all in the Dreamland Billionaire series by Lauren Asher, and I absolutely loved it. It basically follows just 3 billionaire brothers and their love lives, basically. And it's just really, really good. I really enjoyed it. Lauren Asher just released the Lakefront Billionaire series, and I read the first one, and guys, you're gonna hear about it in my January reading wrap up. It blew all of the Dreamland Billionaires books out of the water. So excited to read more. She just announced like the second one that's coming out in like June or July. But anyways, the Dreamland Billionaire series was probably definitely top reads of the year because I ate those up. I was in a reading slump at the time, so it was so exciting to find books that I actually wanted to read. We're not going to say anything about Happy Place by Emily Henry, but this was one of the best books I read last year, if not ever in my life, which is saying something. I would sell my soul and maybe the soul of my friend's family's boyfriend dog to experience reading this book again. Emily Henry, guys, that's all I have to say is Emily Henry. I do not know what she put into this book, and I loved it. So Call It What You Want by Alyssa Derogatis, I believe is her name. Not my favorite, but would still recommend. I feel like this book was so real, and if you have experienced a situationship, you would enjoy it. She did announce that she actually has signed with a publisher, and the book is going to be longer, and they have sort of fleshed out, had more plot development, character development. So I'm definitely going to be picking this book up again once it is traditionally published and reading it again in hopes that there's a little bit more oomph to the story. Forever and Ever by Lucy Score, I unfortunately DNF'd. It was the only book by Lucy Score I've ever DNF'd, but some of her older books are written in like third person, and I just do not enjoy that much in romance novels or books in general, so I just did not like this book. Next up, I have Misfit by Elle Kennedy, which was definitely a top read for the year. I really enjoyed this. This is a part of her prep series, which is one of her newer series, and yeah, I just really liked it. Next, I have The Summer Girl by Elle Kennedy, which was, I can't remember even what that was about, which is kind of sad because I love the Avalon Bay series. I think that was the third book in the series. I think it's Good Girl Complex, Bad Girl Reputation, and then The Summer Girl. And The Summer Girl, I just don't remember what happened in that book. Then I have The Summer I Turned Pretty, which is not my favorite book, but I would still recommend this series. But, oh, sorry, it's not Summer Without You, my bad. I just don't like the books that much, but the show, Connie, baby, I love the show, but the books just aren't, they're just too YA for me, I feel like. Then I have Flawless by Elsie Silver, which was definitely a top read of the year. Dabbled into small town cowboy romances. This was my first cowboy romance, and I am obsessed, and I'm so excited to read the rest of the Chestnut Spring series. Next, I have The Love Hypothesis. Did I actually read this? LOL. I have had that book. That was probably the book that has been on my physical TBR for the longest, and everyone was like, you have to read this, blah blah blah. Didn't love it, and honestly did not make me want to read any more Valley Hazelwood's books, so I don't know. Immediately no. Who told me to read Say You Swear? Because I just want to have a little conversation with you, because that one was just not very good. The Mary Shelley Club, though, on the other hand, by Goldie Moldavsky, would sell my soul to experience reading in for the first time. What did she put into this novel, and why does nobody talk about it? I think it has a different name now. Like, I don't think it's published under the title of the Mary Shelley Club. This book was amazing. Definitely got me into like YA thriller, YA horror. Just if you like slasher films like Scream and that sort of thing, you would love this. This was one of my favorite books of the year by far, and so underrated. I just want everyone to know about this book, but I also want to gatekeep it because I loved it that much. Next, I have Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, my first Abby Jimenez book, and a 5-star read. Definitely a top read for me. I absolutely loved it and cannot wait to read more by Abby Jimenez this year. Next up, The Naturals. I read the first book in the series and the second in the series in 2023, and I would sell my soul to experience reading this again for the first time, and I'm so excited that I gave this series a chance. I was just not going to give it a chance after reading the first Inheritance Games book and honestly not enjoying it at all. But the Natural series is top notch. I just finished the third in the series and I have one book left. And you guys, so excited to, well, actually I'm not excited to finish those books because I just want more. Like, I need more. But I absolutely loved it, and if you're into like Criminal Minds and stuff, this is Criminal Minds, but they're teenagers. So amazing, amazing books. Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. I do not remember reading this, even though I read it quite recently. I just did not like this book. I did not connect with it, so that's all I'm going to say on that one. Wait for You by Jennifer L. Amatrao. I honestly do not remember, so I would put it in did I actually read this, but I just did not like this book. It was, everything that could happen to a main character was in this book, and I just didn't like it that much. Maybe in Another Life. Not my favorite TGR book, but would still recommend it for you guys. Maybe Meant to Be, though. Definitely a top read. That was my first book by Kate L. Walther, and I absolutely loved it, and I'm so excited to read more by this author as well. I just read this book. I literally read this book in just a few hours. Like, I read it in one sitting. I could not put it down. I absolutely loved it, and it was just such a cute little read. Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. Definitely a top read from the year. I absolutely loved this book, and I cannot wait for the second one to come out. I don't know, I think I'm down bad for cowboy romances, so that's something. I have The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. This was not my favorite book, but I would still recommend it. I think I rated this pretty highly, but this book was just really hard to digest for me, and that's why I would say that I would still recommend it to you guys, but tread lightly on this one because there are so many trigger warnings in this book. But I really did enjoy this one, and I believe the sequel just came out, so I'm excited to read that one. Next, I have For Found Dead by Natalie D. Richards, which was also a book that I read in literally one sitting. I could not put this book down, but the ending made me rate it at 3 stars. Like this was gonna be a top book for me, like one that I would never shut up about, but then the ending just fell flat. But I'm still gonna put definitely a top read, even though I rated it a 3-star, just because I enjoyed it that much, and it had been so long since I had read a book that quickly, and that I was like, what the heck, the whole time. So excited about that one. Then I have the XX, which I feel like I read way before the end of the year, but I DNF'd this one, so I'm gonna put it in the immediately no pile, just because I did not enjoy this book at all. I DNF'd it. So, but that is all the books that I read in 2023. I am so excited for 2024 and all the books that we're going to read and all the reading content for this year. Be sure to like this video, comment down below, and subscribe, and follow me over on all of my socials. Stay tuned for all the bookish content that I have coming for you guys. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys.